Some of us are beginning to wake up. Some evidence that some new, more healthy fantasy may be taking place is, of course, the movement of many toward the memory of Malcolm X. But I'm not all too sure. But it does indicate that some people are looking at the reality of our situation and looking for perhaps a different model, a different ideology, a different way of dealing with that reality. But you see, those who are dominant rule by advancing fantasies, by promoting fantasies. The fantasies laid on African people by the NAACP, by the Urban League, and by other assimilationist organizations were funded to a great extent by whites and Europeans. And while one major group would not support our economic development and political development in the deepest sense, they themselves advanced their own political interests. And while they would not support nation building in the African community, they plunked the nation down right in the midst of the so-called Middle East. In other words, we were fed the fantasies of assimilation and integration by the same group who concerned itself with building a nation and building power so that it would no longer be dependent on the goodwill of other people, because they learned the serious lesson that sitting on the goodwill of other people may mean circumstances one day can change, and people who may not have noticed who you were or noticed that you were racially different suddenly begin to realize who you are and act on it. It becomes very instructive to recognize that at the time that the German Jews were persecuted and started to be and were being gathered up for the gas chambers, they had achieved the highest levels of integration in German society. Many of them thought that they were truly German. They identified with German culture and German ideology, German literature, and contributed to its art, to its sciences, philosophy, and so forth. And yet, the convergence of various circumstances singled them out again, and they were persecuted. So the idea here, ladies and gentlemen, that we can throw up before this community all the things we've contributed to America, which is what I call, historical contributionism. We brag about how much we've contributed to America, how we built America, how we contributed to its arts, how we contributed to its science. And we can even go back into history and say, well, we taught your great forefathers, the Greeks, civilization. That's not going to save you. That provides very little defense when for one reason or another the people may decide to do so. They may say, oh yeah, you Egyptians, you were true Africans. We know that. You taught our Greek forefathers. Yes, we're aware of that. And you made great contributions on into the chamber. We'll remember you. Many people then are beginning to face this reality, but then a new fantasy has been laid on us. What I call the New Age fantasy. The New Age fantasy of multiculturalism. A warmed over assimilationist ideology. An idea that developed from what we call cultural pluralism, as defined by Christine Bennett in her book, Comprehensive Multicultural Education. Cultural pluralism is characterized by mutual appreciation and respect between two or more ethnic groups. we talk about the multicultural curriculum, she defines that curriculum as the curriculum develops knowledge and understandings about cultural differences and the history and the contributions of contemporary ethnic groups and nations, as well as various civilizations in the past. How does that feed you? How does that employ you? How does that protect your very lives and biological interests? This kind of knowledge, this kind of respect for other groups. It strives to integrate multi-ethnic and global perspectives into the traditional curriculum that is primarily mono-ethnic and, in the United States, Anglo-European. Another trip. We're going to dance other people's dances and sing other people's songs. And we're going to respect them and get them to respect us. That sounds very much like the assimilationist to me. And where does that get us? I go to many colleges and universities and I see black students and black people pushing multiculturalism. And I ask them, why is it that black people are pushing this? We're the most multicultural people around. We've always respected other people's culture. Any other group of people could come and go into business in our community. Any other group of people can come and live among us as a people. We have worked beside every ethnic group on this globe. We have not lynched other ethnic groups. We have not boycotted other ethnic groups. We've even tried to claim their identity. There are many of us who felt proud when somebody said, oh, I thought you were an Indian, or I thought you were a Mexican, or I thought anything but black. Black people have not rejected other people's culture. They have not made other people suffer. We eat every kind of cultural food there is on this earth. We wear every kind of cultural dress on this earth. We support every kind of cultural group on this earth. The only cultural group African people have rejected is African culture itself. And now before you can find out who you are and what you are, before you can read your own history and come into your own self-knowledge, someone is laying a curriculum on you telling you you should learn more about other people. And yet you must be aware that if you suffer from a lack of self-knowledge, a lack of self-acceptance, a lack of self-love, a lack of self-confidence, a lack of identity, I don't care how much you know about other people, I don't care how much you sing their songs and dance their dances, I don't care how much you eat their food, you still will not be right in the world, and you will still be oppressed by every other ethnic group this earth has on it today. You have to recognize that. But yet we got somebody caught up in multiculturalism. The question I ask, where is it? Where is this multiculturalism you're talking about here? Where is it? Is it in your neighborhoods? Are you living in a mixed neighborhood? Where are the multicultural grocery stores? Where are black Americans and Dominicans owning things? Where are black Americans and Koreans owning things? Where are black Americans and Arabs owning things? Where are black Americans and whites owning things? Where are they living together? Where are they sharing? Where is this multiculturalism we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, in the colleges, in the schools, but not where? In reality. And we are being taken on a trip. And if you take a little time and check a bit of reality, you will come to recognize that at the very point multiculturalism is reaching its zenith in popularity, is at the very point where the world is literally breaking apart through what? Ethnic conflict. Every evening it serves and croaks and this one and that one. Where is this racial harmony that we're talking about? Huh? Or is it another game to be run on black folks' minds? Is it another fantasy that we'll trip on for the next 30 years while people exploit us and use us? Is it another fantasy that will have us wake up one day and have all of the other ethnic groups in this country look at us as the enemy and ultimately decide to destroy us as a people? While we were caught up in our assimilationist fantasies, we've seen every other ethnic group come now to achieve the identity as a minority in America. And those programs that we struggled so hard for and fought so hard for to advance our interests as a people, now we got to share with every other group that decides to give itself a name. All of a sudden, white women became minorities. You see, all of a sudden, immigrants became minorities. Yes, I'm going to say it. Some of you don't want to deal with it, but you got to deal with it. It's real. It's real. I'll tell you up front, African Americans should be the first in line to get from America. Yes. And why do I say so? Because I'm immoral? No, because we paid the price. We paid the price of the hundreds of years of slavery in this country. We paid the price of Jim Crowism. We paid the price of lynching. We paid the price of injustice. We paid the price of police brutality. We paid the price of unemployment. We paid the price of ignorance and miseducation. We paid the price with our blood in every theater of battle this country has ever entered into. We fought the Revolutionary War. We fought the Civil Wars. We fought the Spanish-American Wars. We fought the Indian Wars. We fought in Europe. We fought in Japan. We fought all over this earth. And consequently, it is a bill come due that we get paid in America. And it is a shame then that there are those in America who expect, after all of these sacrifices, that African Americans act as if they just got off the bus yesterday. Why don't you act like the other immigrants? We are not the other immigrants. But this is what happens when you fall prey to fantasies. You become afraid to speak up for yourself because you want to be loved too much. You want to be accepted too much. You want to be liked in the community. You want the Korean to smile at you. Yeah. You want to see in the eyes of other ethnic groups that they don't see you as black. And just for that, you let them take all of your money out. Just for that, you let them starve your children in the street. Just for that, you won't even educate your own children. You won't provide them with recreational facilities. You won't provide them with employment because you want to be loved and accepted by somebody else. You're going to die looking for love and acceptance. Because the reality of the world, ladies and gentlemen, is that it is made of ethnic groups, that it is made of races. And if you believe so, it was made by God, there must be some damn purpose for it. How is it that you're made as an ethnic group and a race, and then you're made to believe that it's a blasphemy not to speak up for who and what you are as a person? And you're made to think it is holy to deny the skin that God gave you.